في أكبر الكتب.
Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lambcast. This is episode number 805, and I'm your host, Richard Kirkham. The movie of the month choices for March were all westerns, as that was the genre that was designated. And the Lamb community had its choice of a Howard Hawks film starring western icon John Wayne, or the sole directorial effort from a star who many consider the greatest film actor of all time, Marlon Brando, or a Robert Aldrich directed allegory on the Vietnam War starring Burt Lancaster. And even a return to previous movie of the month salute to spaghetti westerns from Sam Raimi. Leave it to the Lambs to choose a kimchi western set in Manchuria in the 20th century, directed by Kim Ji-woo. The Good, the Bad, and the Weird is a takeoff on the Sergio Leone classic, with lots of variations to make it work in a different setting and exploit the comedy and violence that the story is in much more obvious ways making. Howard Casner's been talking up this movie for a few years now, and by making it movie of the month, you have finally forced me to follow through on the promise to see the film. Howard and I will be joined by movie of the month regular Matthew Simpson for this trip to war-torn China in the 1930s. Welcome back, Matthew.
Thank you for having me as always. Pleasure to be here.
And as the sponsor of the film, I'm going to ask Howard to take the lead of the discussion, but I'm sure all of us will have contributions to make about this wild hybrid of Korean, Chinese, Japanese history and an action-adventure comedy inspired by an Italian Western. Take it away, Howard.
Well, I'm not going to start by suggesting who on this panel is the good, the bad, and the weird. I'll just go with it. It's 1930s Manchuria. Japan has taken over Korea and the northern part of China, and World War II is on the brink for the Western world. Into this backdrop ride three people: a bounty hunter, the good, played by Jung Woo-sung; a hitman, the bad, played by Lee Byung-hun; and a thief, the weird, played by the great Song Kang-ho. They all find themselves intersecting due to a MacGuffin of a treasure map. The action rises as everybody converges on the X marks the spot location. Joining them is the Japanese Imperial Army in its non-stop action. So, as usual, I thought let's just start with our general impressions. What you liked about the film, what didn't work. I guess we can try to go without any plot spoilers as possible and get to those later, but I don't think that will take long to get to those. So, Matthew, why don't you tell us?
So I had never actually seen this film. I thought that I had, but in watching it on the weekend, I realized I never actually had. So I was delighted to visit it for the first time. It's been on my radar since 2008 when it came out. And my general impression is that it is a ton of fun. In the same way that like it has that sort of zaniness of a Sam Raimi picture. It has the action adventure of an Indiana Jones picture. It has a great combination of like it's all very retro, but I really like the intersection of like there's the Korean bandits who are all like horseback Western bad guys. There's the Japanese army who are much more modern. The weird rides a motorbike. The good rides a horse and is an archetypical like neutral, lawful good type dark. Like I just loved everything about this movie, basically. I don't It's It's hard to be specific because all of the things are so good. It's a little cartoony, but I love that in a movie like this. So yeah, aces all around for me.
That's good. Well, Richard, you're up.
Well, you were talking about this film 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought it sounded like a hell of a good time. And then it's come up a couple of times since then. I think you mentioned it, and somebody else on the show talked it up quite a bit. And I said, I've got to get around to that. And the fact that I hadn't gotten around to it is just negligence on my part, just not taking advantage of opportunities when they presented themselves. This was my first time watching it. Finally did catch up with it this weekend, and it was a lot of fun. I was fortunate enough that I actually subscribed to a channel that had it, so I didn't have to pay extra for it. It was nice, and I could watch it a couple of times, which I needed to do because I'm an old man, and sometimes sitting in a warm room watching a movie leads to some drowsiness, and I had to go back and double check a couple of things. I dozed off a couple of times, but not because the movie's boring. It's not boring at all. It's quite exciting. It's a lot of fun. It's full of madcap action, silliness, and there's a lot of jokey things in it. When Matthew said it's a little cartoony, I think that's true. You have to understand that it's going to be a lot cartoony going in. If you're expecting something, look, it is a takeoff on the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that'll be some of those will be some of the things that I want to talk about a little bit later. But if you're expecting something that's got a more serious tone to it, like that spaghetti western, you're going to be really confused because it isn't quite that. Uh, there are some serious elements to it, and let's face it, assassins killing people and explosions and the war in the background and Manchuria falling to the Japanese. That's all serious stuff, but it's not treated seriously in this. This is a movie where the action heroes swing on mysterious ropes that appear out of nowhere in order to be able to have an exciting sequence in an action set piece. And you don't really care that it doesn't make a lot of sense. You're just happy that you're watching it, and the like I think Matthew said, it's like a Sam Raimi film where with Ash swinging around with his rifle, taking out the bad guys all over the place. It's the same kind of thing that's going on here. I was not familiar with the three actors that are in the leads. I thought they were all great. I enjoyed them quite a bit. I think that the tone of the film manages to stay action comedy pretty successfully. There were some things that were a little bit confusing, but it all cleared itself up by the time I got near the end of the film. So although I was occasionally flummoxed as to who everybody in the film was and what their motivations were, that doesn't really matter that much because it's really about the action sequences that are happening and the comedic bits in the movie.
Well, I guess I first saw it before it came out because I saw it at the Los Angeles Film Festival. And I think this was the third South Korean film I saw. It started with The Host, and then I saw The Chaser and this film. And this simply solidified me in my thought that the most interesting and intriguing films were coming out of South Korea. Out of nowhere, it seems, suddenly they have this incredible burst of creativity. And that's because censorship had fallen and the economy was booming. So that's where these come from. Um, I love it. It's my third time for seeing it. I showed it to some other people. I'm just mesmerized by it. I think it's so brilliantly directed and edited. I do agree that as we get to the end, I am starting to go, no, wait a minute. How did these people know where this was? And how did this people know where this person was? In such a way that they all managed to converge at the X marks the spot. But I didn't really care, you know.
Yeah, if there's a secret to the map and everybody knows where to show up, that makes the map seem a little superfluous.
Well, that is it. I mean, everybody seems to kind of, or they're following people to it, but yes, maybe if you saw it 5 or 6 times, you might finally be able to put it all together.
I mean, I just assumed that they all sort of followed one another, and or
Right.
in the case of like uh the bounty hunter, the good whose name is Park Duan, I think. Um
Yes.
sorry, yeah, Park Duan. Like he's theoretically seen the map at least once. So no, I'm happy to just hand wave that away. Is like everybody's seen the map at least once, so they can all figure it out.
Yeah. So they sort of know where it is. But
Yeah, and then it's all desert, so as they're all riding their motorbikes and horses and whatnot, they can just see the dust in the background and in the distance,
yeah,
and then we're done. Good enough.
um, I watched it on the Roku channel this time. How did yours versions end?
I got the
Oh, that's
Korean
a
ending.
spoiler. Should we? Let me ask that question later because that's a spoiler. It's just that it ended in a way I didn't remember it ending.
So I don't want to spoil it now, but there are two endings. There's one that was here and one that was released, one in South Korea, and they
But
are slightly different.
but neither one of them seemed to match the one I saw. So I'd like to find out later when we get into spoilers and see what happened or if I've done a Mandela thing.
That could easily be the case. That happens to me. I still have a memory. I think I've mentioned this before of the first time I saw Jaws, and I swear there was a scene where Quint got a baby dolphin out of a bucket to use it to as bait for the shark. But I may have just dreamed that and then inserted it into my memory of the movie.
I could tell you a story about the A Star is Born, but we'll do that later. Um, for me, the movie is made up of some great set pieces that you could almost watch alone, and they just feel kind of complete in themselves. Do you feel this way, and do you have any particular ones that you like?
Well, there are three particular ones that I have a good memory of. There's the train and the train robbery sequence, which happens at the
Mhm.
beginning of the film. There's the fight in the what do they call it?
Market.
The ghost market
Yeah.
uh, that takes place, and that's also quite elaborate, and it goes on the longest time. And there are a couple of sequences in that it feels like they visited the market twice to get in a second bite of the apple, so to speak. So I either of those was plenty sufficient for me. They were both well staged and full of cool stuff. And then there's the long chase scene at the end, like the Road Warrior sequence where everybody is chasing everybody else on the desert. And I think they were all quite good. The middle section where they have the fight in the ghost market is the one that's full of all of those moments when Park Dong-won is swinging around on various and sundry cables and ropes and cranes to get from one point to another to shoot at people and to escape being shot at and captured. And it's a lot of fun. It looks great. It's like Indiana Jones flipping his whip up and swinging between the buildings. It does it make any sense? No, but it does look cool. And when you've got that long duster on and the cool looking hat, it looks even better. So, I like those sequences. Yoon Tae-gu is a fun character. He's apparently been quite active as a bandit, and his biggest accomplishment and the thing that distinguishes him the most in all of the action sequences where he is really active as opposed to hiding is that he's one of those two-fisted gunfighters. He's got a gun in each hand and shoots them continuously, which is not easy to do, but once again, looks cool on screen. And he's having a lot of fun in those sequences as well. There's a funny bit where he doesn't have the guns because they were taken away from him from Park Do-won, who's a bounty hunter and has taken him captive. Uh, but they kind of team up at one point. But Do-won is not giving him his guns back immediately. But in the middle of the battle, he needs them, and he gets they get tossed to him out just outside of his reach, and then he has to try and obtain them, and then we don't see him actually use them. We just see the result of him using them. So I thought that was kind of a clever bit. Like I said, most of the stuff in the village where the ghost market is well staged. This is one of those scenes though where it's a little bit confusing because there is um, Park Chang-yee's gang and then the gang that is the ghost market gang, which is a different group, which sometimes seems like they are on Yoon Tae-goo's side, and sometimes they seem like they are don't give a damn about him, and he's in their way. So it was a little confusing where the loyalties were, and who was shooting who, and who was trying to kill whom, and there's a lot of death on screen.
Oh yeah.
So I couldn't keep track of how many of the bad guys versus the other bad guys versus people that we might call good guys were being wiped out. But once again, that's not of critical importance because it's, just background for all the wild stunts that they're pulling.
What about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically on the same page as Richard here. I think the ghost market sequence is my favorite in the film. Um, but I'm a big sucker for that sort of Indiana Jones type thing that Park Duan is doing. In particular, there's a really there's a moment where Park Duan like sees a platform and sees a cable and sees a winch and he grabs the cable and shoots the winch and it fires him up
Oh
in the
yeah.
air as the weight comes down and the weight nearly hits Yang Taegu or Yoon Taegu. Like that kind of thing, I'm so in the bag for. And then once he's up there, he's everyone else is fighting with like handguns and swords and a giant warhammer, and he's got a rifle and he's a little more not slower, but he's a little more methodical. And I loved everything he's doing. Loved everything that Jung Woo-sung is doing in this movie. If I had one note for this whole sequence, it's that um, Song Kang-ho's character ends up in his like final standoff in the sequence with a character called Gom or the Bear, who's played by Ma Dong-seok, and he dies off screen, which is a minor spoiler, but like
Oh,
I just wanted, it's I he's a big deal. I like him a lot. He's probably one of the better known like in the West anyway of like South Korean action stars, and I thought it was a little weird he dies off screen, um, but all the sequences are great. Like the train sequence at the beginning when they're all at odds is really really fun. I love a good train sequence. Um, I love how like zany and madcap Yoon Tae-gu is through the whole thing. Um, like he of all of them, he's probably the most cartoony, and he's clearly having like Song Kang-ho is clearly having the best time making this movie. Um, I might agree that at the end, when there's like four, three gangs and an army converging, it gets a little bit much. But by that point, like it doesn't matter. As you're watching Song Kang-ho drive a Jeep through a desert, chased by a guy on a horse with a flail being fired on by an army with artillery. Like, who cares at that point? It's just all fun. And the whole movie's fun the whole way through. And then the ultimate resolution at the end, I think actually really works, which we'll get to a little later.
well, I agree with both of you, of course. Um, yes, the ghost market scene is definitely a standout. This time I did sort of wonder. The action scenes, the set pieces are so long. I do wonder how short a summary of this whole story would be, because when you take those out of it, there's maybe not a lot of plot, or maybe there is deceptively a lot of plot.
I mean, if it
You're
helps,
talking about you.
the Wikipedia summary of this movie is only two paragraphs, but it yada yada
Yeah,
yada's away a lot of the action sequences, and there's only two
yeah.
paragraphs.
You're talking about Song Kang-ho, who played the weird, and you're saying you weren't familiar with any of the actors. You actually probably are very familiar with Song Kang-ho.
That's
He's the most
yes.
important actor in Korea today. If you saw Parasite, Snowpiercer, The
The
Host,
the host, I saw the devil. He's in
yeah,
Memories of Murder as well, I think.
right. He has the lead in that.
He's
So, and Secret
long
Sunshine,
long collaboration with Bong Joon-ho, which
yeah.
is why he's probably well known in Western spheres.
But in Korea, he's a huge star, and he's has a wide range, which may be why you didn't exactly recognize him or able to connect him because he doesn't really look like the person in Parasite all that much. So,
No,
um,
he's a real chameleon.
mhm.
And even like the most recent thing I think I saw him in was oh, what was it called?
Howling.
Uh, Broker. I think it was Broker,
Oh,
which was 2022, I think 2023. And yeah, like that dude disappears into a role, like not just in terms of like his acting ability, but physically, he's so different in each one of the roles that I've seen him in. I love him for that.
we need to get the Criterion Channel to do a section on
Yeah.
him. There is one thing I did think during that final big action piece as they're heading toward the treasure map is, oh my God, this is a movie where nobody ever runs out of gas. Horses never get tired. Men never get tired. And you don't really care. You're just so involved, you
No one runs
know.
out of bullets either.
Yeah, I was going to
Right.
say, I think there were one or two moments when we see um Yoon Tae-gu kind of changes magazines, but not frequently, and certainly not as
Yeah.
frequently as you would need to, given the number of times that he keeps shooting those two guns in his hands.
And I think they also do the thing, I'd have to measure the time, but when they use the machine gun,
Oh
it
yeah.
may go on too long because you can only do that in very short bursts or it overheats and melts.
Well, the deal is, when they show those machine gun things, they talk about how fast the bullets fly, and it's capable of, let's say, shooting 300 rounds a minute. Well, if you look at the magazine that he's got, that magazine probably holds 50 rounds. So it would go in a very short amount of time. He doesn't have a drum magazine on that like a Tommy gun. It's just, the extended magazine. And so that first burst that he had would probably be all that he'd be able to get off. But it's a movie, so I'm not going to
Right.
worry about that. I can't count the number
Well,
of
look,
bullets. I had
I
a hard
think it
time
was,
counting Clint Eastwood's bullets in Dirty Harry, much less all of the bullets that are being shot here.
well, I think it was the same thing in uh, this Spielberg movie, um, Saving Private Ryan, where someone pointed out the machine guns are going on too long. They couldn't do that long. That's the only, that's one of the weaknesses of the machine gun. You have to stop every time they stop, you can get farther and farther to the front. Anyway, that's sort of irrelevant. Um,
Well, speaking of machine guns, just as a side note, you can go to Vegas and they've got ranges where you can shoot a machine gun. So
oh,
if you're ever interested in trying it, they have it. They have them there. It's not an easy. They may have them in other places too, but I've seen them in Vegas.
I have a
I
feeling I wouldn't be able to do it at this point in my life.
I have friends who've gone there for bachelor parties and done it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Well, the movie is a tribute to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Someone said at the time when I saw it, but I'm getting the feeling that it's not true, that they were going to call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, but that would have been copyright infringement, even though you can't copyright titles. Um, they changed it to the ugly, but I don't know if that's true. Um, how do you think the two movies compare or work together?
Well,
Um,
that's exactly the information that I worked on and thought about as I was getting ready for the show. What are the similarities and what are the differences between them, and where does that help the film or hurt the film. So I've got a trove of things that I'll mention here for similarities, if you don't mind. You've got pursuit of the buried treasure is the same thing. You've got three characters who are all some kind of archetype. You have a bounty hunting subplot. You get a tenuous partnership between two of the protagonists in the film. There's a scene where one character is dragging another around by a horse in the desert. There are sequences that require very careful sharpshooting trick shots. You get a Mexican standoff at the end, and you get frequent uses of close-ups. I thought that there was a lot of stuff that was clearly inspired by the good, the bad, and the ugly, and some of it pays off pretty well. Now, I did notice, for example, the use of the close-ups. I think that the director here has made an effort to ape the Sergio Leone films without actually trying to get the same kind of result because you don't really get the tension build. You don't get the sweat off of the characters. You don't get the constant zoom that you would get in the good and the bad and the ugly. Every time they switched from one face to another, you get that kind of zoom effect in that film. Here, it's mostly just close-ups of each of the characters as they are engaged in some kind of act, and then it's followed up with that act. So it's doing the same kind of thing, but not in the same way. And I think that's probably because they're not looking for the same tone that's going on there.
Right.
So, and I'm okay with that. And I did like the relationship between Yoon Tae-gu and Park Don-hwan, which was, you know, both of them are strong-willed characters, but Yoon Tae-gu feels like he's overconfident when he shouldn't be. Although in the course of the film, we get several suggestions that he is like this legendary bandit, and other times it's suggested he's some kind of loser. So I'm not sure which way it goes, but that's part of the comic effect of the movie. But like I said, there's some sequences between the two of them, similar to The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach are exchanging insults or trading superior or inferior positions. Uh, we get a little bit of that. I like. I'm not quite sure why we had a sequence where Do-won takes Taegu out to his cabin in the woods someplace to keep him captive overnight. I guess it's on the journey to wherever it is he's going to take him for the bounty. But there's a funny sequence where he starts to escape after being told not to escape, and he just gets caught in the process of doing it, and he basically just turns around and puts himself back into captivity. And I thought that was a lot of fun, and it was a nice twist on that same theme that they had in the spaghetti western. On differences, obviously the biggest differences here are the time period and location where things are taking place. Uh, This is a 20th century setting. Uh, by the way, one of the similarities is that both movies take place in the middle of a war, uh, the Civil War in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and the Japanese invasion of China and Manchuria uh, in the 1930s. So you do have, the conflict between different warring parties going on in the good, the bad, the ugly, that there's like one extended sequence where the outcome of a battle between the two sides matters. Here, you don't have anything like that seems to matter on the outcome of the war. They talk about it a little bit. They talk about Korean independence. They talk about losing their country, and what does anything matter if you don't have your country? But none of it really connects to the conflicts that are going on. And there's a Japanese character who is, looking to possess the map as well, and that's basically just another way to introduce that additional army section toward the end that doesn't really have much to do with it. I think the train robbery is different. There wasn't a train robbery in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Um, and you get a lot more corrupt officials going on here. But the biggest difference to me, the one that I think matters the most, is that there are a lot of supporting characters that you didn't get in the spaghetti western. Mangill is the character that is like Yun Taigu's, I don't know what you call him, best friend,
Um,
second in command, major domo,
I
Friend,
something
think
like that.
friend anyway would work, I
Yeah,
think.
friend.
there's something like a fence as
And
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's an extended relationship there, and he's a bigger part of the story than any, like the Eli Wallach's Tuco character didn't have any of that in in the Italian film. So that I thought was a big difference, and it because there's a plot point that's related to it that's also pretty important, especially in that ghost market fight. So that matters what's going on there. Park Chung-yi has his own gang of criminals, bounty hunters. And they're not really bounty hunters. I guess you would just call him his associates, his criminal associates. That some of them come from the army, some of them might be deserters, some of them might be assigned by the Japanese that he might be selling material to. It was not quite clear, but there are a couple of sequences where those guys come into play a little bit more than we had with Lee Van Cleave. I think there was one character, the sergeant in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, that was kind of connected with Lee Van Cleave's character in that film. But here it's the bad has not just him, but a whole group of baddies to go along with it. And then let me see, was there something else? Oh, the action set pieces are much longer in The Good, the Bad, and the Weird than they
Oh,
were in
yes.
the other one. We've already talked about that a little bit. There's a lot of stuff
Mm.
going on there that you just most of the action sequences in the other film t take place pretty quick. You know, they're either over quickly or there's a long, long setup for them, like the bridge uh, detonation scene. It takes a long time to get to that, and when it happens, it goes quickly. But the battle scenes there are relatively brief, at least in comparison. And that's my contribution to the comparative arguments. I hope I didn't step all over everybody else's points.
Well, you certainly did thought more about it than I did. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate that. What about you, Matthew?
I mean, how am I supposed to follow that?
I know. What can you say?
There's literally nothing that Richard didn't already cover at this point. I guess the only thing I might just elaborate on a little bit, I guess, is that I really actually enjoyed how it's the good, the bad, and the weird. I think that the sort of like action comedy tone they're going for is really served by the ugly being the weird, and I think that Song Kang-ho is uh excellent in the part. He's really good at being kind of, like I said before, like zany madcap, and I think it really serves the film. Um, but in the same way that like Eli Wallach is a little bit that in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but like Song Kang-ho is like a lot that in this movie. But I think it really works. I think there's a t tonal difference that cannot be understated, and I mean that in a complimentary way. Um, but that's really all I got that Richard didn't already say.
I'm sorry, I just yacked on.
No,
No, no,
fantastic.
honestly,
I
it's
was glad to
amazing.
hear
You
all of them.
you clearly put way more thought into it than I did. So take this.
So,
That's complimentary, 100%.
yes.
Okay, I'll take it.
There's another way of looking at the three characters, and this happens a lot if you ever see a movie that has three central characters. These three characters, you could say, represent the id, the ego, and the superego. The weird is the id, the bad is the ego, and the superego is the good. Um, and you see that a lot in films. Um, I also see this as sort of a We talked about influences, but I think this has at least three major influences. I think it's like Sergio Leone meets Sam Peckinpah meets Quentin Tarantino. And he just puts it all together and goes for broke.
I would only add that I think, whether it's on purpose or not, I do think there's a dash of Sam Raimi in there too.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but Sam Raimi is also like very much influenced by those like the Richard talked a little bit about the like camera work and the sort of quick zooms and effect that happens, which really happens most effectively in this film in the final standoff. But like that is also a very Sam Raimi thing, um, and just the overall action comedy tone is feels very Sam Raimi to me. I'm sure there's some South Korean references that I'm missing, but that's where I'm at with it. Basically.
Well,
I
especially
think you're
maybe
right.
from the politics a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. That there's probably a lot of stuff that Western audiences probably don't get or are unfamiliar with, and so as a consequence, there are laughs that we're missing, or there might be even some uh, political moments that would be more important to those cultures than to Western culture. But it's mostly, like we've said, it's mostly being played for comedy action effect, and not to comment on the time period that's going on there.
So let's get back to my question earlier, because how did your versions end? What was in the last scene?
Well, I think I've got the international version that had the truncated ending because the last scene involves the Mexican standoff where everybody dies.
Yeah, that's the one I saw this time around, but I don't remember seeing that the first two times I watched it.
It's interesting.
Um,
So the version I had is the um, Korean version, like the domestic Korean version. So I guess we're in full-on spoiler territory for anyone that hasn't seen this, but um, basically the Mexican standoff happens, and then Yoon Tae survives. He stands up and reveals that he's like put a sheet of metal under his jacket, in a very sort of Clint Eastwood homage moment. Um,
Well,
and
that's right out
then
of
yeah,
a few dollars
uh,
more.
yeah, and he goes to back to the well because the treasure turns out to be not what you expect. But he goes back to the well and there's some dynamite, and he's sort of like trying to figure out what he can do, and then he realizes that he's surrounded by the Japanese army that has just arrived. But then they flee when they see he's got lit dynamite, and then he rides off into the sunset. And Park Duan is also alive and like chasing him with like vindictive intent in his face. As I understand it, it's the longest version of the ending, and the
well,
most version of the ending.
that's what I saw the first two times I saw it. So when I'm watching it on the Roku channel and it just ends with them dead, I went, wait a minute.
Well,
I don't,
they did have mid-title sequences that showed the two characters alive afterwards. Uh, so as I was watching the credits, I saw that and I go, well, how the hell could that happen? They both got shot. Sorry, people who, in case you weren't paying attention to the spoiler wall that we failed to signal very clearly until right here at the end. Uh, like I said, the version I saw, they're all dead at the end. I think except then when the credit sequences are running, uh, the good and the weird are revived somehow, which is never clear to me what the hell happened. And having read about the alternative ending, that's the Korean ending, and the one that you guys just described, uh, I could see how that was just that it leads to the payoff that I'm seeing in the title credits. But otherwise, it just seems strange.
Yeah, I don't know why they would truncate that like that. I guess because they felt that like someone must have felt that the Mexican standoff and everybody dying was like a satisfying ending and minor subversion. Um, I have never seen that version, so I couldn't tell you for sure. Um, but I thought that the version where he wakes up and continues his sort of like, you know, madcap thing was pretty funny. And it made sense because
It's
he's
a
he's
better ending.
essentially it's a better ending. He's also essentially the protagonist. If there is one, he's the one, and it makes sense that he at least would perhaps be the one to survive. I don't it. I just watched it a couple days ago. I don't think it actually really explains how Park Do-won is alive. Like
Yeah.
he's just alive. Like he just gets up. And there
But
is like
at the end of the good,
it is also interspersed with the credits. Like it's not it doesn't go it gets to the point where he's got the dynamite lit and the Japanese run away and then he realizes that it's lit and he dives for cover and then the credits roll and then you get scenes in the credits. So um yeah, it doesn't actually explain how
yeah.
Jung Woo-sung's character is alive, as far as I remember.
But it's like the ending of the good, the bad, and the ugly. If I remember right, he has the ugly strung up on a rope and leaves him some gold and rides off and then shoots the rope so that they're both alive. Do I remember that correctly?
That's correct.
Yep, I
Yeah.
think so. It's admittedly been a minute since I've been seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. I should really fix that, but
No, that's it. That's it exactly.
that's how I remember it. Yep.
Yeah.
So Tuco's
Um,
standing on one of the crucifixes that marks a grave, and then you know, Blondie basically rides off after having left a third of the wealth there on the ground for him. And then when he gets to the crest of the hill, he turns around and repeats the shot that they were doing at the beginning of the film when they were, taking in all the locals with their fake bounty hunting routine.
um, did you have some other aspects you wanted to bring up, Richard? Because you said you
Uh,
had written out some stuff.
well, like I said, I thought that the the sidekick characters were kind of interesting and a lot of fun. Um, there's a, a suggestion that one character is this sinister finger chopper character that is referred to, and that supposedly is the Park Dong-woo is convinced that Park Chang-yi is the finger chopper, and that's really why he's going after him. And I'm not quite sure why the finger chopper matters to him so much, except maybe there's a bounty on them. But then there's a twist reveal at the end that it turns out that Yoon Tae-gu is the actually the finger chopper, and I'm not sure why you have the reputation for that having done it one time in a weird situation, but whatever. It was a twist that they threw in. I don't know that it accomplishes anything, uh, but
I think that so in the at least for me in the longer version, the implication is that when they were all in Korea, he was a much different person, and that was like his calling card. And he sort of left that behind when he came to Manchuria. But that might be me filling in the blanks. I'm not really sure.
But the
well,
question
you're
would be
doing a good
more,
job doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And I also think that they said that the good character, I think his family was somehow hurt by the finger slicer. What might not quite work is that the bad and the weird don't look anything alike. So that might be questionable as to how the bad could ever be accused of being the finger cutter, because all the people he would have come in contact with said, no, that's not him. It's this guy over here. But
I mean,
And and
maybe
it's
he,
I'm
a fun twist, but
speculating,
you're
but
right.
maybe I'm speculating, but maybe like that's the reason he's in Manchuria, right? It's far enough away that no one would know, and it's far enough away that someone else could perhaps, ride that reputation. And he's fine to let them do that because he's trying to leave it behind for not exactly to turn good, but just to turn something else,
Right.
It's kind of like the oh, I can't remember his name. Lance Henriksen's character in The Quick and the Dead, who's like, you know,
Ace
who
Hanlon.
Ace Hanlon, yeah, who like is the presents himself as the fastest, most accurate gun in the West, but it turns out he's actually trading on other people's reputation. Um, sort of that sort of thing. Pretty, a bit of a Western trope, but I can dig it. That was my read anyway. But again, maybe I'm filling in the blanks. I don't know.
I think you have to fill in
Who
the blanks
cares?
several places in the movie and just go with it.
Yeah, that's right.
I did have a weird question that I had to follow up on. I looked it up, and because there's at one point when they're sitting out in the desert in the dark around the campfire and the coyotes howling in the background and go, wait, there are no coyotes in Manchuria, are there? And I double checked, and coyotes do not exist in that part of the world. So
But when they have
maybe it's a
wolves,
wolf, maybe it's a
yeah,
wolf.
but you're right.
Or
Coyotes are North American, aren't they?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they are. I mean, it could just be any other wild dog species, I guess. But yeah, it is very much playing
There's
on
a
Western
dingo in
tropes.
Manchuria.
Yeah. Oh, you beat me to it. I was gonna say a dingo got me, baby.
Yeah. I'm sure that somebody imported it just for the movie.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So should we go for final thoughts?
Sure.
Why don't you start?
Okay, well, look, this is not a movie that is essential, but it is a lot of fun, and I think if anybody has some time, they'll enjoy it. Don't expect it to be a classic Western because even though it mimics a lot of the things from the spaghetti Westerns, it is completely different tone and maybe makes a lot less sense. But it is interesting because it's set in a different place and you have different technology involved and different, but there's a mixture of the, you know, Asian culture that's going on there. There are references to, the opium dens and that sort of thing. And I found it very interesting and entertaining. And like I said, if anybody has time and is looking for something fun to do, this is probably a good way to spend 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd agree
Matthew.
with most of that, or all of it really. I would just add that, like, maybe it's not like an essential film, but one thing I think, and maybe this is the wrong podcast, like the audience for this podcast is not the right person, right people to point this out to, but like this could also be a really great gateway to South Korean cinema. If you've never seen anything before, if you've
Yes.
been a little bit curious, if you're like, what is going on in this? People talk about it, what should I watch first? I think this would be a great one to watch first. Um,
I'm,
in terms of just like
if
just
you're a
in
little bit
terms of
curious.
yeah, like if it's an area that you're like, where do I start with a whole new like cinematic oeuvre, whatever word you want to use, like this would be a great place to start. In particular, if you're a fan of action movies, like if you like, Mad Max, Quick and the Dead, fun Western type movies, then this would be a great entry point for you to South Korean cinema, and I think that that is very valuable.
Well, I think that's true. As I said, it was the third South Korean film I saw, and I was hooked. I said, I've got to see more of these films. Um, they can, I think in some ways they're easy to get into because the ones that we get over here most of the time are genre films. They're horror films. This is a Western, political conflict, all sorts of things, thrillers, action. There are other kinds of films like Secret Sunshine and things like that that are not really genre films. But I love the film. Like I said, I've seen it 3 times because the last time I showed it to some people who wanted to see it, and yeah, I had a really good time um, seeing this. I think strangely, in spite of all the violence and everything, you kind of feel good at the end of it.
I mean, it's too much of a good time to not feel good
Yeah,
at the end of it.
exactly.
Well, I feel sorry for all those lambs that couldn't join us for this show because they've missed out on something that was quite entertaining. Hopefully, everybody who listens or watches the podcast will be inspired to watch this movie and then maybe join us next time that we do something kind of wild and off kilter here. Thank you, Howard, for suggesting it.
I was kind of surprised that it, came at first because of everything that was going on in my life. I couldn't really promote it or anything.
Well, people were obviously interested in hearing us talk about it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here to hear from a fellow Lamb Podcasting Network show, and then we'll be back with our exit question of the week.
The Blueprint Review podcast is a monthly show where writers from the Blueprint Review website get together for a loose conversation about a wide range of films and physical media. In the show, the team reviews at least one previously unwatched disc from their individual collections, as well as talking about upcoming releases that they're excited about. So, if you're into films and shiny discs, go check out the Blueprint Review podcast. You can find us on most major podcasting platforms.
So Howard suggested this non-Western Western, and he also suggested the question that we are going to use as our exit question this week. And I thought it was pretty interesting. I had a lot of things that popped into my head immediately, and I put them into different genres as a consequence. We'll see what the other folks on the show did in response to the question as well. Howard's question is real simple. Our exit question is, what are your favorite non-Western Westerns? And Howard, since you came up with the question, I'm sure you have a bunch of answers.
Well, I have one main one, but yes, I have others as well if you want. But this is the movie that I've been trying to, at times, to get the Lambcast to cover. It never gets the votes. And it's called The American Astronaut. It's from 2001. This is are you sitting down? A black and white sci-fi Western musical.
You
It,
can stop talking there. I'm sold. That's
yes, I've seen it 3 times. I could see it again. Um, it's just so weird. Uh, the the central character is someone who, I guess, a soldier of fortune or someone who trades to make money. He'll go get something for someone and then trade it for something that he trades over here, and that's how he makes his a living. Um, I just don't know how to describe it. I really, really don't. Um, except that it's just so much fun and it's so weird. So,
I'm going to have to
uh,
try it because my oldest daughter, not the one I live with, but the one in Southern California, she helps me out a little bit with the website. And she apparently was watching a couple of the videos and looking at some of the things that were recommended on some of the shows. And so she followed up and watched that movie that you mentioned, Howard, and she was not a fan. She thought it was not very good.
no.
And I
The
thought,
last I showed it to 2 people. One loved it and one did not like it. So I'm
so
just warning you, it's really weird.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
that goes along with the one that we just saw. It's the good, the bad, the weird. We'll see weird in space. There you
Oh
go.
no, this makes the good, the bad, and the weird seem like a realistic Western.
A normal one.
I mean, yeah, say less. I'm in. I'll definitely have to check this out now.
Matthew, have you got some favorite non-Western Westerns?
Yeah, I had a really hard time narrowing it down, so I chose not to. Um,
Good for you.
so
Me too.
um, if we're talking about ones that are not Western in the way that they're just not in the American West, I really like an Australian film called The Proposition, which is Guy
Right.
Pearce and Danny Huston, um, Ray Winstone, and it's a story about outlaw brothers at odds. It's hot, sweaty, dirty, um, very brutal, um, and amazing to watch. Like Guy Pearce is, I think, transcendent in it. It's got a great John Hurt cameo in the middle too. If you want to go with westerns that are decidedly not westerns because they're in space, I'm actually a pretty big fan of Outland, which is basically
Uh,
High Noon in space with Sean Connery.
yeah.
Um, which is a fun, like it's set on a mining colony off just outside of on I think a moon of Jupiter, if memory serves. And
Yeah.
there's a string of murders. Um, Great movie. Very 80s sci-fi though, like I kind of love that, like, everyone's got super realistic technology and it's all big switches and CRT screens. It's kind of amazing. Um, if you're into westerns that aren't westerns because they're modern, then I'm a big fan of Sicario,
Yeah.
which deals a lot with, you know, um, gangs and cartels and violence at the border. And similarly, I think until he went a little cuckoo, Taylor Sheridan has made a lot of great movies. I'm a big fan of, he wrote Hell or High Water, which I think is one of the better modern westerns that exists. Um, the Coen brothers have done it a couple of times, but probably best with No Country for Old Men, which I'm assuming everybody in the world has seen at this point, so I'm not going to talk about it. Um, and if you're into something a little more esoteric, and apocalyptic, then I think actually the entire Mad Max franchise is a great not Western.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, those are my current the ones that I have off the top of my head.
Well, I'll tell you, you have basically returned the favor that I did to you earlier, and you were so thorough in covering everything, because I have a lot of the films that you just mentioned. I put them into different categories: contemporary, dystopian, Asian, and science fiction. Science fiction, I had Outland, which I love. I saw that film when it opened. I went to the Chinese theater in Hollywood to see it. It was great. I've watched it a dozen times since then. I'm a big Sean Connery fan. I love the high noon aspect of it, and I'm always impressed with the film and the tone that it takes. And Frances Sternhagen practically steals the movie at one point. Uh,
No, not practically. She steals that movie.
Yes, yes.
and then Hell or High Water, uh, the year that La La Land came out. I had La La Land as my favorite film when I did my first list, and then a week later I said, "Nope, I'm gonna change it because Hell or High Water is my favorite film." And then I did it again, and I said, "No, La La." Those two films bounced back and forth at the top of my list for that year. And Hell or High Water, I've probably seen a half dozen times since then. A great uh, performance from Jeff Bridges, but also from Ben Foster, who I think was neglected in getting the credit that he needed that he should have gotten for that particular film. And
I agree.
speaking of contemporary films, and one that's managed to have now three and a half, depending upon how you count it, four sequels to it. John Wick is basically a Western, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, you're not
It's a
wrong.
revenge film, and he's the gunman who's been wronged, and he's going to make sure that everybody who's wronged him gets their comeuppance.
It's
And for
funny
the
because I thought about saying John Wick, but then I was like, that's more of a samurai film. But those are also kind of the same thing.
Well, that
So,
They
you
are.
know,
in my Asian category, I have Seven Samurai, which after all
Right.
is turned into a Western. So why can't we go reverse engineer it and just call it a Western that's set in Japan?
Exactly.
Because it's basically, you know, the story is straightforward, and of course we've also had it in space as well with Battle Beyond the Stars.
Right.
So
And also
hmm
basically with Galaxy Quest in a way.
yeah. So I'm all for thinking of the samurai films, many of them. I haven't seen that many, but I love Seven Samurai, and I would definitely say that it's a Western that's a non-Western. And the Mad Max films, I also had those listed as my dystopian uh Westerns. So I think we're all on the same page on most of these things.
Oh, I
Actually,
do
you know
have
what?
to say,
It just
go
popped into
ahead.
my head as well is I'm just looking at my DVD shelf and I realized I didn't say Desperado, which is a super fun time
Hmm.
at the movies and
Oh,
debatably
and
the
El
reason why we
Mariachi to
have
go with it.
debatably the reason why we have Antonio Banderas as the star he is today. Um, super fun movie.
Absolutely.
Like, you were talking about John Wick, and there's this guy who makes TikTok videos of usually about dogs, especially how different breeds react to robbers. But he has one a series where people go to heaven. So John Wick dies, and he's at the pearly gates, and they're looking over his file. He said, "Oh my God, this guy has killed 10,000 people. And God says, well, yeah, I guess you're going below. And then his assistant says, well, wait a minute. He killed them because they killed his dog. And God says, oh, well, in that case, come on in.
Come on in. Yeah, I'm with God in that situation.
Yeah,
You know, everybody deserved whatever happened to them after he killed the dog.
yeah.
Yep. Oh, you know what else? I don't know why I didn't. I'm just gonna sorry, cut back in and say
It's okay.
Logan. Logan is an amazing, not
Yeah.
Western. There's just so many. It's like
Yes, right.
the Western slash samurai slash sort of lone warrior thing is one of the best sort of frameworks for a film, I think. And so there's just so many examples, and I love them all.
Well, I'm glad that we
Fantastic.
had this talk, and I loved all of the alternative westerns that have been suggested here. So I hope everybody who's listening will get a chance to catch some of those. I want to give both Matthew and Howard a chance to promote anything that they have that they'd like people to turn their eyes and ears to. I know, Howard, your pop art isn't quite active yet, but you had a couple of other things that you had written about, and maybe there's another podcast that you've appeared on that you could mention.
Well, I do know that I wrote a blog article about film noir and male-driven film noir as compared to female-driven film noir. And yes, I feel like I was on another podcast recently. It has to be the Forgotten Film Con. Uh,
Forgotten Films, yeah.
yeah, and we watched The Chosen.
There you go. And Matthew,
And
have you got something that is new or updated that you'd like people to pay attention to?
Yeah, my main thing now, actually, I started a new publication. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I hope you have. But I started a new publication called the Northern Reel, in which I'm focusing very specifically on Canadian cinema and talent, and trying to and not single-handedly change perception of the internal perception of Canadian cinema, but a little bit that, but also just highlight the fact that, there's a perception in Canada, I'm sure without, that we are effectively just infrastructure for American production, and that's just not true. We produce lots of great films every year, and so I'm trying to highlight that a little bit. And so far, it's been very rewarding and very fun. The response has been very good, and I hope you check it out. It's northernreel.ca.
I just saw a film by Atom Egoyan
Hmm.
uh, with Deadpool. Um,
Oh, yeah, I know the one you mean. I can't remember
yeah,
what it's called, but yeah,
I
it's a pretty
I
good
just saw
movie.
that one. Yeah,
Not either of their best, but solid, I would say. We were I'd land on that
yeah,
one.
it's solid. There were some plot issues where I was going, wait, I don't think this is how the police would handle this, but
No,
yeah.
but it's also like Ryan Reynolds is the main character of that story, and it's very much from a time that I miss where he was taking a lot of interesting roles and making interesting choices while playing them, which I feel like he has not done in quite a long time. And
Mm.
this is definitely one reason. I don't know if it 100% works, but he's taking a huge risk doing it, and I appreciate them for that.
Well, it's good that people take a swing at something that maybe is a little bit outside of their expectations. And you guys know the name of the movie? You don't remember the name of the movie, do you?
It's called, hang on, I can remember it. It's called like The Captive or something like that. Yeah, The Captive. It's
All
from
right.
2014, so about 12 years old now.
I think Rosario Dawson is also in it, but I can
Uh,
be there.
yes, that rings a bell. Um, and also Scott Speedman is one of the cops, along with Rosario Dawson, and Kevin Durand is in it. Um, and
It is
Muriel
a nice
Enos.
little cast.
I think it was one of the first films. I think I saw Muriel Enos in Big Love first, but this is one of the first films that I saw her in. Um, and then there's a bunch of other like Canadian dudes who show up in everything. Like again, Kevin Durand is one of them, but Bruce Greenwood is in it, and a few other ones. So yeah, it's a solid movie. It's one of the better
You
ones
have to talk.
from
You have
like
to talk
the
about slings and arrows at some point.
yeah, everything's on the list. Right now, the thing with Northern Reel is I'm trying to not overwhelm myself, so I'm trying to limit the content to stuff I know I can reliably put out.
Right.
But once we get some other writers on board, and things start taking off a little bit, then yeah, there's going to be the plan is for all kinds of different content. And I hate that I use that word now, but yeah, the all kinds of different writing about all kinds of different areas of Canadian film. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. I'm very excited for how it's doing so far, and I'm very excited for where I hope to take it. So yeah, northernreel.ca. Please check it out.
Uh, all right, we won't disparage you by calling you a content creator. We'll refer to you as a writer, which is the way it should be.
Thank you so much. I hate that that word is in the lexicon that way, but I catch myself using it all the time now. It's frustrating.
That's the way the language works, We find new terms for new things and old things as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of content creation on my site, it's the same old thing. I'm just trying to keep up with the films that I've seen in the theater. I cheated a little bit on Scream 7 by just posting the audio and the illustrated podcast that I did for the Lambcast on that, because I don't really think I had anything super creative or inventive to add to my thoughts on that particular film. I did manage to post a separate review for The Bride, which is a film that wants to be something and isn't. It just doesn't quite work. Uh, and then I went a week ago to a screening of Jurassic Park at Alamo. Always loved a chance to see Jurassic Park on the big screen. But 95% of my comments on that post have to do with Alamo's new policy regarding how they are taking orders. And they basically have decided that using your phone during the film to make your orders is the way they want things done. And there is no alternative option. So the company that's most noted for being so vociferous about keeping people from using their phones during the film has now basically said that's what we want you to do. And it drives me a little bit crazy. I think it's absolutely stupid.
I mean, after a big corporate buyout, shocking. I'm
Yeah,
terribly shocked.
surprise
It's
somebody is, yeah. Well, that's things change, who knows what's going to happen with I watched the Academy Awards the other night, and the number of Warner Brothers films that won awards was pretty impressive. And I'm going, and apparently they're not doing well enough to stay an independent company. They have to be purchased by somebody else. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but
that's a whole other podcast.
yeah, it's a weird world that we're in. Well,
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys for joining me for this episode of the Lambcast, and especially since we had to kind of record at a different time, but it's worked out nicely, and I hope that everybody who's listening enjoyed the discussion of the good, the bad, and the weird. And you know, as we say here in Austin, stay weird, folks. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.
It's over!